can then become a vehicle that helps in speeding up your retirement aggressively. If I think back right now to everybody I know who's either financially independent or has the option to retire early right now, every single one of those people, actually apart from one guy who's a high income tech person, every single other person has, hey guys, I was on a flight recently and up at about 35,000 feet, got up to use the bathroom, stood there waiting for my turn, and I looked to my right. And a guy looks at me and goes, "You're that guy off the internet." And I'm like, oh man, what a place to meet a fan of the humble penny. And he goes to me, "Can I please ask you a question?" And the question was, I'm in my 40s and I'd love to retire in 10 years, but I have little to nothing saved for retirement. If you were in my shoes, what would you do, Ken? I thought this was such a relatable question. In fact, if you can relate to that question right now, jump in the comments and react as you're watching today's video. I feel that so many people, whether they are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, or even beyond, can relate to this because a lot of people know that retirement is something that will come at some point. However you define retirement, whether it's that you one day stop working and do absolutely nothing else but just have fun and just do life, or you have a bit of a hybrid situation where you're working still, but you're partly retired. Whatever the situation, there is a point at which you need to ask yourself, how am I going to fund my retirement? For today's video, I want to just have a conversation. Yeah, you're going to have to be patient with today's video because I just want to think through the process for how to solve this problem. I think there are usually two things people tend to do. On one hand, if you've got this sort of dilemma where you've got little to nothing saved for retirement, you can either just give up and just go, do you know what? That's it. I'm going to put my head beneath the sand and that's it and forget about it. The alternative scenario is that you get practical about trying to solve the problem, which is what today's video is going to be all about. If you're enjoying the sound of today's video, really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. Every single person who subscribes to a channel gives us a good signal that what we're doing is something that you guys appreciate. So please, even if you think you've subscribed, please check and hit the subscribe button. Okay, this video is unplanned. I've made some notes on my notepads. I'll be referring to it once in a while just to make sure I'm on track, okay? Now, before I go into it, before I start, I want to just share just how I think about this journey of retirement, what I think about the thousands of messages, whether it's comments and so on that we get when people think about retirement. They think about retirement this way, okay? People tend to expect that their retirement will be funded in two ways. One is that they think of the state pension, okay? So people are like, yeah, I've been paying my national insurance, so I expect the state pension will show up and back me up or help me out. Now, this is an interesting option to aim for, but in my opinion, for someone who, of my age group, if you're a millennial or even a Gen Z, I'm kind of putting a line through the state pension. Now, if that shows up, that would be really nice, but I'm not really counting on that. The second option is that people then look at their workplace pensions, right? So they're like, yeah, I'm putting money in and my employer's putting money in, which is good. Alternatively, if you've been watching our channel and being diligent with your saving and investing, the investing being more important, you might have been putting money away into an ISA, like a lifetime ISA, a stocks and shares ISA, and you be investing in some funds and so on, okay? Now, what we're looking at here tends to be what people do, okay? They're like, yeah, this is it. This is my retirement, kind of planning towards it. And they know that some place there's a bit of a gap that exists between where they are and where they want to get to, okay? So for today, I want to just assume that you are at ground zero. You got nothing. Although I'd be utterly shocked if you've got nothing, but I know that that's some people's reality, so I can't even judge that. But I will assume you've got nothing. And what I want to do with this video now is just walk through how I would think about this situation if I was in exactly those shoes. And I know some people are in those shoes because actually my parents, when they moved to this country, moved to the UK, started life in their 40s, in their mid 40s, with absolutely nothing. So it's possible that a lot of people are in this position. So the very first thing I would do if I was in this situation, if I was putting myself in your shoes and empathizing and trying to work out how to navigate this, is I want to ask myself, why do I want to retire? Why do I want to retire in 10 years? Now, this why question is very important because I think that your core motivation for wanting to achieve any goal is what actually drives you or determines to what extent you are hungry to make that goal become a reality. A lot of people kind of skip over the why. They're just kind of like, I want to retire. But I want to know from you, if you're actually watching this right now, even if you had to pause this video, just reflect for a moment and ask yourself, why do I want to retire in 10 years? Okay, what does it actually mean to you? Now, I actually think 10 years is a good time period to aim for because everyone out there, a lot of people out there actually assume that their careers will carry on. But I actually think that if you assume you've got 10 years, it gives you a bit of a deadline. So you don't suffer from, you don't fall into kind of Parkinson's law where you keep kicking the can down the road, but it gives you a bit of a deadline and a sense of urgency. So reflect on why. It might be that, you know what, I'm going to be old, or I've got a bit of a health problem, or I just want to retire early, or I want to just give up my corporate life and start to pursue a passion project. Whatever it is, please be clear on what your why looks like. This gives you a sense of purpose. So that's the very first thing I'd do, is be very clear on what your why looks like. And then after your why, I want you to then look at what is my objective? What is the goal I'm aiming for when it comes to this whole idea of trying to retire? Now, I want to look at the goal in two ways, okay? Because, oftentimes when people look at goals, they just don't have a lot of specificity around their goals. You can have either that you are aiming for an income goal, right? Which is that, you know what, Ken, I've thought about it. I've thought about my lifestyle, and I reckon that I need about, making this up, about £2,500 per month, right? Just making this up, right? Hypothetical. Or you might say, do you know what? What I need is a big lump sum that I want to draw down on. So I might need, say, making this up, £500,000 or $500,000, whatever it is you're aiming for. Now I know, that's not a humongous number for some people, but for some people that's a number that works for them. I actually think that's actually quite a reasonable number, particularly if you don't have housing costs. But that aside, let's say, so you've got either a monthly number or an annual number that you then want to draw down on. You have a percentage, like a drawdown rate, like a 4% drawdown or a 3% drawdown every year, and then you use that to live your lifestyle. Now, the reason I've brought this up this way is it's very important to be clear on what that number is and why you've got that number, okay? What sort of lifestyle would this number give you? But the other reason why I wanted to make the number clear in ink, so you can see it yourself, is for you to then think to yourself, oh, what's going to be happening over time? We're going to have inflation, right? So things are going to be going up in value, right? Costs are going to be rising and what have you. So what you really want is for whatever you're aiming for to also be going up over time. By that I mean, you want the possibility that the income source that's producing this 2.5K a month is able to rise over time. So for example, if you had that invested, you want that portfolio to not just sit idle and just be like 500K in the bank account. You want that to have the capability of rising over time so that you can maintain your purchasing power in some capacity. So step 2 is then to clarify what on earth is your goal. Yeah, because with this, you're then able to say, do you know what? If my goal is a monthly amount that I just want to, I want to start to generate, yeah, the strategy you're going to pursue for a monthly income, will be different to a strategy you're going to pursue for a capital appreciation type goal where you're trying to create a big lump sum over time. Yeah. So the second thing, as I've mentioned there, is being clear on how much you need. And the other point is how much you need is also driven by where you want to retire. Yeah. Or rather where you want to retire drives how much you need. Yeah. Because if you want to retire in the UK, life is going to be pretty expensive for you. And most people watching this video will likely retire in the UK or somewhere near the UK. So think very carefully about it. Some people might have a bit of an arbitrage. Like one of our members in our community at Financial Joy Academy said that her goal is to build up a portfolio of 600k so that she could then go and retire in Uganda, right? So a bit of an arbitrage there. She's like, wow, and that works beautifully well. So for you, if you've got those 10 years, where would your retirement actually happen? And how does that then drive what your monthly, your income requirement would be at retirement and so on? Now we've established an objective. Now, obviously, there'll be a bit more work, to be done there, but I'm kind of trying to speed this up, right? Because I want to just get to the strategies, right? So we've looked at your purpose, your why. We've looked at your objectives, which is your what you're aiming for. Now I want us to look at your strategy, which is your how. How exactly are you now going to do this? You remember you've only got 10 years, which is a long time. It's actually not that long as well. Yeah. The traditional, kind of like investor in stocks and forget it, might not be the only thing you need. Okay? Because if you've only got 10 years, I actually think you need to stack a couple of strategies in order to get there a lot quicker. Yeah. So the very first thing I'd say is if you're starting at that point of 0 right now, yeah, it would imply to me that it's either you don't have a job, in which case the next point is go and get yourself a job, or it's that you've got a job but you are living above your means, in which case there are some money habits that need to be dealt with and gotten rid of, some bad money habits and gotten rid of in order for you to start to live below your means. Yeah. So step 3 is to then start to look at, do I need to go and get a better job or get a better job, or do I need to work better on my money habits? Okay. Now that would then lead us to start to create a bit of a buffer, which at this point, most of you watching this video are already doing that. You've got good money habits and you're building a bit of a buffer. Now, this is where most people actually give up on this whole idea of speeding up their retirement goals, because most people just sit in their jobs and that's it. Whereas if I was doing this, if I was empathizing, putting myself in your shoes and doing this from scratch, I would say that my next step after this would be for me to invest in new skills and in my education. Why? The reason for that is, as great as your job is at the moment, and of course I appreciate that you can actually make more money from your existing skills, and I'll come to that in a moment, I think that if you really want to smash it in 10 years, like literally get to that point where you've made retirement an option for yourself, skilling up with the right skills that create that possibility of higher income is what you need to do. The very first skill area I'll be pointing to a lot is, and this will be slightly unusual, but I'll tell you why, is I'll be looking at learning the skill of sales and marketing. Everyone watching this right now can actually learn the skill of sales and marketing. I think of the skills of sales and marketing like the 2 engines of an aeroplane. Now, when an aeroplane is taking off, sticking to the aeroplane analogy, an aeroplane doesn't actually need both engines to actually take off. An aeroplane can take off, from what I understand, from just one engine. But imagine those 2 engines were, one was marketing and one was selling. In the analogy of a business, the body of the aeroplane and different other parts being different parts of a business would never become successful, or the business of your life would never become successful without marketing and selling of a product or a service. Yeah. So you need sales and marketing skills to not only market what I'm going to be talking to you about next, but to market your abilities, to market who you are, to let the world know what you've got to bring to the world. Yeah. To serve lots of different people and find ways to earn some money. So skills and marketing is one skill. Other skills worth learning are, for example, and this is really random, but trust me, I know exactly what I'm talking about here. It's a skill of video creation and video editing. Okay, why? If you think about what I'm doing right now, I'm making a video at the back of my house. And after I've made this video, there'll be thousands of people who eventually watch that video or who might then go on to watch other videos. This is actually giving me and my wife Mary a lot of visibility just because I've learned how to sit down here, think about an idea and share that idea that I'm passionate about with the world. I think the idea of making videos, creating videos that have positive impact is actually a superpower that anyone can obtain. So learn video creation that will get you out there, and get your voice out there. The third, I'd say from a skill perspective, is web design. If you can learn web design, absolutely. The next one is actually interesting, is how do you prompt AI? So AI prompting, how can you better prompt the artificial intelligence technologies that we have today? How can I use that to get better results that help me to create something? All of this stuff I've just mentioned, sales and marketing, web design, video creation and editing, AI prompting, all of that and more, including obviously financial literacy, learning investing, and all those other things, all those skills together are there for you to start to generate passive income through other vehicles outside of your day job. And we've made, if you really want to get into kind of learning what passive income is or how do you begin earning your first passive income, we've created a resource that I think you should go and check out, where we essentially shortlisted 5 different passive income ideas and explained how you actually begin with them. So I'll link to that below and above. Feel free to go and grab it and download it and check it out if you want. So that's the step. That step is skilling up and educating yourself. Now, that skilling up and educating yourself is happening parallel to your day job. So I think of this as what you're doing in the year 1 of 10, in your 10 years that you've got. Now, in addition to skilling up and educating yourself, I then want to apply that skilling up and educating to creating for yourself a business that produces cash flow. Okay? You can do this alongside your day job. But I want to pause here for a moment and talk about this, because I honestly think that every single person should have something that develops their ability to be enterprising. And a business is one way of doing that. And the reason I mention the cash flow bit is you can create for yourself a smart side hustle. One where you are working less and earning more over time. Yes, you're putting a lot of time, you will even put in money into creating it, but it's something that might then create for you a form of recurring income over time. Now, I mention this because a lot of people, when they think about their retirement, don't actually think to themselves, when I'm actually retired, what am I going to do with myself? What am I going to do with my time? Yes, you think, oh yeah, I want my time back, I want all my time back. Yes, if you've got all your time back, you can actually experience a lot of loneliness or boredom. You need something that makes you a productive member of society. So starting your own business, whether it's a form of a passion project, not only helps you remove that fear of failure that you've been accruing by being in a day job and not taking risks, but it actually helps you to create an income. That income can go, if you've over time mastered that skill set and automated that business, can then become a vehicle that helps in speeding up your retirement aggressively. If I think back right now to everybody I know who's either financially independent or has the option to retire early right now, every single one of those people, actually apart from one person who's a high income tech person, every single other person has a business as a vehicle. Now, if you are one of those people who don't know how to start a business, or if you've had this itch of starting your own business but never quite known, how do I go about doing it? One thing I do, apart from running this YouTube channel, is actually coach a small group of people who might want to start their own businesses and by using their existing skills to create recurring income each month. If you want to learn more about that, I will link to it below and above. Go and read up, go and think about it, and consider if it's something that's for you. Now, beyond owning your own business, actually one more thing I want to say about businesses, apart from just starting a business, you can actually buy a business as well. So I know this because growing up, I remember my mom actually buying a business, a medical services business that she bought when she was trying to supply medical staff to organizations. She actually bought a business of that nature. And it made me think, wow, like you can actually buy businesses. So there are different websites if you want to buy an online business. There's one called FV International. Feel free to go and check it out. There's Flipper, which is another website. You can go and check it out. And there's another called businessforsale.com, I think. Feel free to go and check those different platforms out. Essentially what I'm saying here is don't let your fear of when you hear the word business or something, don't let that fear stop you, because you're actually limiting yourself massively. Instead, think to yourself, how can I remove the barriers that are stopping me, and how can I actually create my own business? Yeah, or how can I actually own my own business? All right, beyond starting a business, this next one's actually pretty important. And I know it's a subject that is actually gets people talking a lot in this country. And that's that you really want to try and invest in property or own property over time. Now, this will not be for everybody. I know that. But I also know, because I get to meet people and I get to see lots of things in the line of work I do. I also know, I'll give you a really good example. Somebody I know recently replaced 50% of their required retirement income by investing in one property as a HMO. A HMO stands for House of Multiple Occupancy. Essentially, rather than putting their money in, say, in other areas like in the stock market and what have you, and I'll get to that in a minute, they've chosen to invest it in an income-producing asset. In this example, a property that not only goes up in value, but also produces income. Now, in the climate we're in, with rising interest rates, this obviously creates a problem for people who might want to go into this area. But make no mistake, there are still many opportunities out there for the people who are paying close attention to the declining prices of property in the UK. Yeah? There are people who are assessing cash flow, they're assessing different things in order to meet bank stress tests, and they are the people who are almost planting those seeds now, and they will reap those rewards in the next 5 to 10 years. So, there's a lot you can go into in this area, whether it's you doing HMO or doing rent to rent, where you're not actually owning a physical property unit, but you are actually taking on removing the burden from somebody else who owns it, guaranteeing their rent, and then, you are trying to get better, you're trying to make some money, basically, some profits from this. Effectively, you start to notice a bit of a theme here, which is that if you are somebody who only has 10 years or is planning to retire in 10 years, for example, you cannot be sitting in your duvet. You can't just be chilling. Like, you've got to, your risk appetite needs to rise a little bit. You need to be in it to win, basically. And all these various areas I'm mentioning are areas that you need to not only just listen to, I heard Ken say something. No. But you're actually doing it. Yeah? You're actually having a go, starting with one area. Yeah? So I talked about property and obviously if you've got questions, feel free to reach out to me. I can talk to you a bit more about all these areas. Number 7 is then to invest in stocks. Okay? Now, I talk about this all the time on our channel. But there are 2 ways you can go about this, again, depending on what you're trying to do. It's either you're trying to produce income, in which case your priority is those dividend-paying stocks, or you're trying to really build a big portfolio, in which case you are investing in growth companies. Okay? If you know nothing about investing, or you are new to investing and want to learn, I'll post our link below, and above, to our investing playlist here on YouTube. You can check it out. But if you're someone who actually wants more specific information, so guidance where I go into a lot more detail beyond what we show on YouTube, I'll link below and above to our super simple investing resource for you to check out as well for complete beginners. So, talked about stocks. Now, beyond stocks, so notice what we're doing here is we've started from a point where we had absolutely nothing. Then we had a job. Then beyond the job, we're scaling up in other areas. And that scaling up is then giving us some ownership and control of our own business, alongside our day job potentially. And from that day job is where we're then So from that business, that cash flowing business is where we're then building up the necessary funds that can then go into some of these other areas. Now, you don't have to rely only on your own money to have a go at some of these opportunities. For example, I bet the minute I mentioned property, some of you just went like, how on earth am I even going to do that? I can't even save up that much money. That's because the way you're thinking might be limited. There are people out there who are coming together with other people and they're saying, you know what? You bring 15K, I bring 15K. Bring it together. I own 50% of something that's generating, say, £350 a month or £400 a month, and I'm getting half of that. Yeah? It's for you to change the way you think about things, to shift your mindset and think, here's the end goal, and here is a problem I've got. How do I close the gap between my problem and my end result? Because there's a guaranteed set of solutions, possible solutions, for getting to your end result. The issue is your limited mindset keeps you here and leaves you there without pushing you forward by you taking action. Yeah, and you want to change that, and I hope you're starting to shift that as you watch today's video. Then the next area to look to invest in over time. Remember, this is over 10 years you're doing this, so all these things are happening gradually. Yeah, the first couple of them are happening in the first 2 years, and then as you start to kind of establish a bit of a buffer, then year 3 and so on. Yeah, but notice you are stacking these strategies and you're not just relying on one, because that's the mistake. If you have all the time in the world, like if you're in your 20s and you've got a 20-year horizon or 30-year horizon, great, like put your money in the stock market and like just forget about it. Put in the S&P 500 or buy a global fund that allocates about 64%, 65% to the US market anyway, and have it invested that way and let it do its thing. Yeah, you will get there and you will make, you'll be in a good place. But not everybody is in that position. The last 2 points I want to make is about gold. So first is about gold. Now, I don't know how much you know about the history of, kind of like money in this country and in the world more generally. But at some point, money used to be, the underlying asset behind the money we had was actually gold. At some point, right? So you could go and say, actually, I want to be able to exchange my pound or my dollar for gold. Right? You used to be able to do that until the year 1971. If I'm getting my history right, so the year 1970 was a critical year because they stopped the convertibility of money, paper that's printed, cash to gold, or to the US dollar, for example, stopped being linked to gold, which is why, the US dollar has its importance in the world and has for some time. We used to be able to convert our money to dollars, and we could then request that our dollars are converted to gold, right? But without getting into all that history, I just wanted to have some idea on why I'm kind of going on about this point. Why does this all matter? That unlinking of money to a commodity meant that these central banks could then print as much money as they wanted over time, meaning that over time, our fiat currency, the money you have, your pounds, your dollars, your whatever currency you use in the world, is actually over time losing value. In one of our Instagram posts, we were asking people, how much do you think £100 in the year 2000 is actually worth today? Yeah, but because inflation then has its impact. What you find is that £100 from the year 2000, around this time of, about 23 years later, has actually lost almost 50% of its value. Whereas other commodities like gold actually retain the purchasing power that they have. My point here essentially is that over time, as you start to think and build towards this retirement in 10 years, you want to at some point in that journey start to put money into other areas that act as a form of insurance. A bit of a hedge for the worst case scenario, and gold has historically been known for being that thing. Which then leads me to my final piece, which is looking at cryptocurrencies. Now, we all know at the time of making this video, you're going to look at a Bitcoin. I think it's probably about $24,000 or something of that nature. These things go up and down. But my point is, for some people who have the risk appetite, and we've always said allocate at most 5% of your money into these sort of areas, This can present a bit of an alternative to traditional currencies over time, because it has that element of it, that element that gold has, which is that it has scarcity. And I'm talking here particularly about the likes of Bitcoin. And this is for people who are thinking long term. Okay, so please don't take all your money and plow it all into Bitcoin, for example. Don't put all your money into that, is what I would say personally. Although, saying that as well, no one knows the future, because there's so much coming down the line when it comes to the state of our economy and the global economy and so on. So you're much better placed by diversifying your money. So not just putting it all into one thing, such as putting it all into stocks, for example, put it into various areas, which is what I hope today's video has essentially highlighted to you, which is that if you are thinking about retiring in a period of, say, the next 10 years, where you've got a finite period of time, you need to stack the strategies that you're going to pursue. And out of all those strategies, around 20% of those strategies will probably give you 80% of the outcomes that you need. And if I had to really summarize what I've shared today, I'll come back to the areas that I would consider investing, which are investing in your skills, in yourself. So really upskilling, making sure you're picking the skills for today and the skills for tomorrow, and actually using those to then create for yourself a cash flowing business. Everybody should own their own business that gives them the ability to become enterprising and diversify their incomes and give themselves an option. Then you need to start to invest into other areas, such as looking at property as an area. Long term, here you generate two returns, whether it's income or capital appreciation. That gives you diversification, and there are different ways you can go into such areas. Then look into the stock market as an area. Stocks have had historical returns. Things go up and down, obviously, but keep your stock investing simple, whether it's the S&P 500 or you invest in a global focused fund, which then removes the worry about whether the US economy might tank or not. Okay. Then you want to then test to look into other areas such as gold for the insurance, or potentially allocating a proportion of your money to look at other areas such as crypto, which is super high risk, I should mention. So this is not for everybody, but even if you had 1% of your money, it then gives you that potential that could actually do something in the future. But beyond that, I just want to say that I hope this video has given you a thought process. That was really my goal in starting this video, is I want to just talk about it. This conversation is obviously huge. There's so much more I could have talked about, but I just hope that this video alone has given you, almost sown a seed in your mind. If you're someone who doesn't feel like they don't have that much time until they retire, please don't bury your head in the sand. There are so many people out there who can not only relate to where you are, but who are also in your situation. So start to talk about it, start to ask questions, but above all that, start to actually be practical and do something about changing your situation. And if you need any help, as I mentioned during that video, whether it comes to maybe coaching in any of these areas, I offer once in a while, for the people who are pretty serious, one-to-one coaching for the people who are interested in either working on their financial freedom journeys or creating their own businesses that create recurring income, or even investing in property, and all these various areas I talk about. If that's of interest to you and you are someone who is absolutely serious about investing their time and their abilities and their money in generating that future for themselves, feel free to reach out, and I'll put my details below and above. Other than that, take care, and we'll see you on our next video. All right, bye for now.